Hello, Guitar Smarts fans. Before you check out this podcast, I want to make you aware of a cool new place where you can interact with other Guitar Smarts listeners. It's a Facebook group called the Guitar Geek Hangout. That's where we hang out and talk about all things guitar. So, if you like the Guitar Smarts podcast, come and chat with Kieran and myself over in the Guitar Geek Hangout on Facebook. Maybe check out some pre-podcast clips and even get involved in asking and answering lots of questions from the other page dwellers. Hope to see you there.
Mate, we made it.
I know. I'm so excited. I feel like we need some sort of fanfare or something.
Yeah, I know. Maybe I'll edit in a little fanfare sound here. There it is. Did you hear that?
Yay!
This is the 100th episode. Can you believe it? Can you believe? I didn't know if we'd make it to 100 when we started. Our first episode was on the 11th of January 2021. So here we are, still doing it 3.5 years later, mate.
What a pleasure. What an absolute pleasure.
Yeah. I'm just looking at some of our stats. We've had 46,555 downloads since we first published, which is, it's modest, isn't it, for a little niche podcast like ours?
Got two middle-aged men talking about guitars and bashing Gibson every other episode, who we secretly love. I mean, it's pretty niche, but the people that listen to us, man. Hey, look, we were voted one of the top 25 podcasts by TrueFire to listen to in 2023.
Exactly.
I mean,
out of the 25 podcasts that are available to listen to for guitarists.
There are more.
Maybe that's a bit self-deprecating. I'm sure
that is very self-deprecating. There is a lot more, man. Hey, look, when you said we didn't think we'd make it this far, because it started as a whim, right? Not because we were terminally ill or anything that we know of. I hope I haven't cursed us.
Man, that just got dark really quick. Come on.
Wow, you started it. You're like, I didn't know if I would make it this far. It's my last dying wish to do a podcast with my buddy. And here we are, 100 episodes later. But it started as a lockdown, hey, shall we get together and have a chat? And then shall we record some of this? And do you think anyone else will listen to our bizarre ramblings? And then the metaphorical tumbleweed just kept going, and we kept enjoying it, and people started listening, and then Facebook groups were formed, and people started interacting with each other, and then 100 episodes later, buddy. Congratulations.
Episodes later.
Congratulations.
And I'm sure we're going to talk about many of the same things again today. There'll probably be some Murphy Lab bashing in there, love of Slash and Clapton.
Oh man, they've called us out. I love that. I love the fact that so do you want to explain your idea, which I think is a lovely idea, and we should do this again, maybe when we get to the 200th episode. But tell people what we're doing today, because it's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, dude. So we were trying to think, weren't we, for a little while? The 100th episode is coming up. What are we going to do for it? Because we can't just sit and have a usual conversation. And I didn't know if we were going to go somewhere, do something remote. At one point, I think we talked about going to the Gibson garage. And in the end, I thought, wouldn't it just be great if we could involve so many of the listeners and a lot of the people that contribute into the community all the time, get them to ask questions, and ask me anything, ask Guitar Smarts anything about right. Whatever you'd like us to talk about, collect all those questions together. And this episode's really dedicated to answering and giving a shout out to all those people that have come back and listened to us for a while and had questions. That's what we're doing, right? We've got a big list of stuff to get through, right?
So a big list. I don't know how we're going to manage this in one episode, but I mean, there's an absolute belter questions, some of which could be episodes in their own right, but in absolute reverence to our listeners and the questions, we're gonna get through them. We're gonna get through them today, and we're gonna try our darndest to answer it. And if there's any that we feel maybe require a little bit more discussion, then maybe we'll pick them up as a separate episode. But thank you guys for taking the time to write your questions. Some of them are deeply serious. Some of them are philosophical.
Yeah.
Some of them are, let's have a look. Some of them may make you chuckle.
Some of them will make you chuckle. Some of them made me chuckle already. Yeah. But before we start, mate, how are you?
Yeah.
Are you okay? You well? You
I'm really good. Thank you, buddy. Yeah, I've had a good week. The weather's been better. True to form, we're going to start with the weather. The weather has been better in the UK of late, and then it's been rainy, and then it's been better. But I think we're set up for a lovely weekend. It's going to be very warm, hopefully because of the sun, rather than far-right activists setting fire to things. But, again, I've gone slightly dark there. Let's not go there.
I'm ashamed to be British sometimes, but anyway.
Me too. Let's not go there. I've been having some lovely gigs with my lovely band that I adore. And I'm a bit sad because we've got a break now over August. We always say we take August off, because we're really busy September all the way through to like New Year's Eve, pretty much, every other weekend we're out there and playing. We had a big...
You're going to have to spend the weekends with your family and, relax.
I know. And we've had a spate of really nice weddings as well. I know you hate weddings sometimes, wedding gigs, but these ones have been really nice. They've looked after us, given us food, and everyone's been having a good time, and it's been outdoors in marquees, and it's been great. I've had a lovely run of gigs. So I am well, mate. Everything is good in the world, but I'm looking forward to a couple of weeks off. Got one more week of work and a couple of weeks off with the family to spend some quality time. No gigging, definitely some guitar playing in there. But life is grand, mate. How about you guys? How are you guys doing?
We're great, buddy. Yeah, we just, we've had a nice few weeks through the summer. Summer holidays now, so lots of stuff happening and lots of family stuff going on. I've not had any gigs for a little while. I've got a couple of gigs coming up in September, which really actually, and do you know what I'm kind of looking forward to, because I've decided that they're going to be my last. That's it. After these two, no more wedding gigs. I don't need to do them anymore. I don't enjoy them anymore. And then after that, maybe in the next couple of years, try and maybe set up a little 3-piece pub band or something.
Yes.
To keep playing something enjoyable. I want to get back into enjoying music and not just feeling like I'm getting the guitar out to go and do something I'm committed to doing that I'm not going to enjoy, so that's cool. I've had a promotion at work recently, which is really good. I'm really enjoying that. Which
Congratulations.
Awesome.
Congratulations, buddy. You're underplaying it, but you've got a big promotion at work. You're so humble. But congratulations, buddy. I knew you were going for the interview, but I didn't know until I saw on LinkedIn that you'd got your promotion. I was like, you didn't tell me you got it. And you're like, mate,
I know.
Very, very proud.
I'm chuffed to bits with it, and I'm really enjoying the challenge so far, which is great. So things are good. Things are good with me, mate. But shall we jump into the questions?
Let's do it, man. So I got a copy of these from you last night, which is great. I'd seen some of them kind of appearing on the social media stuff, and then I know that some others came in. So thank you. You put them all on a list for me, and I laughed and I cried and I went, that's a good question. So let's get stuck in, man. Where do we want to start? Because you've helpfully grouped them by kind of the person that's asked them. So we get to do some shout outs as well to our listeners.
Well, let's just start. Let's just start from the top of the list, right?
Let's do it.
So a very good friend, contributor, everyone knows him, Damo Lodrick, sent us a list of questions, and I think the good thing about this list of questions he sent is that at least one of them is serious. A serious question.
Is it?
Yeah, I think at least one. So the first question that Damo asks is to Kieran, and it is, are you sponsored by Tokai now? Which I don't know if that's a real question or if it's just a dig about, how often you've mentioned your Tokai guitars.
I know, I'm sorry. And I apologise to our dear listeners for that. It's an addiction, but I want you to be able to find good quality alternatives. This is why we set up the podcast, wasn't it? Right? We had this idea, we had this notion that, and this links to another question later. We had this notion that there was a lot of snake oil being peddled on the market, and I work in sales and marketing, and I love a good bit of PR, but we wanted to be able to bring to our listening audience alternatives, lesser known brands, cheaper ways of getting great sound rather than necessarily having to sell a kidney to buy a guitar.
Yeah.
And for me, I've been with this podcast, right? Because I didn't own any Tokais when we started.
No, that's true.
And now I've got 3 of them, and they are my 3 rotational gigging instruments. So that's where I've come from episode 0 to episode 100, is I've moved wholesale over from gigging Strats, American standard Strats, to Tokai Les Pauls.
Yeah.
Love Rocks. So, no, I'm not sponsored by them, but if they are listening in Japan, because we do have some listeners in Japan, please feel free to send me as many as you want, and I'll keep telling people how amazing they are.
Yeah. And if you could, when you do send Kieran guitars, send them to my address first, please. That'd be fantastic.
Correct. You should vet them first.
So there you go. Demo. Kieran is not sponsored by Tokai yet, would seem to be the answer. His next question was, will either of you ever return to the Farmer in Jam Night? Well, yes, eventually.
Definitely.
Eventually, yeah.
Definitely. Let's find a Thursday in August if we can, if we're both around, to go and do that, because it's literally at the end of my road, and you have played there a few times now to great effect. So, yeah.
Yeah, I need to get down there, dude. So, yes, Demo, we get it. We get it. His next question, are all 6 strings needed really? The really at the end kind of, it's not are all 6 strings needed, it's like, are all 6 strings needed really? Like, well,
is that the bass player in him asking that? Or
that's a good point. Yeah. So no would be the answer, I think. So the answer is no. Keith Richards would say no. Obviously,
Keith Richards
playing only 5 strings. Jacob Collier would say no, plays a 5-string guitar. George Formby would say no. Seeing as he didn't mention guitar as the instrument, then I guess we could say anything about anything that has strings. But that might protract this conversation out longer than we want it to be, so let's move on. Next question, does playing guitar really make you sexier?
Me sexier?
Well, he is saying you. Does it make you sexier?
Does it make you sexier? This is an interesting one, isn't it? Does it make you sexier? Damo, it definitely doesn't make you any sexier, because you couldn't get any sexier to start with. There's a threshold of diminishing returns. So it's just like it's an icing on the cake, really, isn't it? An icing on a very well-baked cake for you. Does it make you sexier? Infinitely, of course. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's the thing. So what I'm hearing is, when he says, does playing guitar really make you sexier? What he's asking is, does playing guitar really make me sexier? So next question. So the next question is, what's the correlation between the size of one's appendage and the amount of guitars owned?
Inversely proportional. Clearly, which is as I get older, I keep buying more of them. I didn't need that many when I was younger. I was quite happy. You get older, shrinkage. Apologies.
So there you go, Demo. Inversely proportional is the answer. Yeah. Is guitar really that important?
That's a trick question.
That's so
He's
deep,
testing us. He's testing us. That's a trick question.
It is a trick
question. There should be no hesitant. Yes. Straight answer. Don't even think.
So my answer is no. It's the pedals. It's all in the pedals. It's all in the pedals,
You bought a Helix. What are you talking about?
That is the pedal to end all pedals. That is.
Oh, see.
To be fair, that Helix has 11 pedals if you include the expression pedal.
You both moved to Helix. That's what's happened from episode 0 to episode 100. 2 of my closest friends and guitar influences in real life, have ditched pedals and valve amps and moved to Helixes. I mean, yeah, I think that's one of the bad side effects of this podcast.
That's it, yeah, exactly. We're just dumbfounded by ourselves, really. But then his last question is the serious one, right? This and let's try not to get carried away. Because we've got a lot of questions to go through, but let's see if we can answer this one right. What makes a guitarist great? Is it technique, musicality, tone, fame, longevity, or knowledge? All of the above. I would say.
Well, it is, right. It's clearly all of those above. But if I guess the way the question's phrased is, if you could pick one of them, what would it be? And for me, the guitarist that I enjoy the most come under that musicality piece.
Yeah.
And my definition of musicality, it may be different for others. My definition is, because somebody could go, well, musicality, right? That's, how well you're applying your level of theory to what you're hearing and all of that. For me, the word musicality is kind of summed up by being really appropriate to like the situation, right? And feeling the music, feeling it through, right? And in conveying some of your emotion into it. And that doesn't mean you have to be the most technical player. It doesn't mean necessarily you have to have the greatest tone, right? So long as it works within the mix. But if you're ringing those notes out and conveying emotion through it and finding a way to then connect with an audience member who can see your musicality in that way, for me, that's a great guitarist to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, you make a good point, which is like arguably it's all of those things. But for me, it's musicality. I've never been as impressed by the person that can like sweep pick at 1,000,000 miles an hour and use all these bizarre modes in their playing as I have like somebody that can just make a single note do everything.
Sorry to interrupt this conversation. However, if you're a regular listener, then do us a favour. Share us with your friends. Spread the word. Help us to grow. And remember to hit that subscribe button wherever you listen to your podcasts. Let's get back to the show.
I completely agree. I mean, at the very base level of that question, I would say if someone is, it's a subjective thing, right? If someone is moved by your music, then and they find you to be a great guitarist, then you're a great guitarist in the eyes of that person. But I guess if we're talking about the capability to bring something to a musical situation, when you think of somebody like Steve Lukather, is that how you say it?
Ding, ding, ding.
Steve Lukather. I'm not sure we've talked about him before, but somebody like him who has technique, musicality, he has knowledge, he's got great tone, all those things that Damo mentioned. He's got it all in the bag, but it all comes out sounding so musical, it all comes out sounding so natural and like it's meant to be there. I was listening to an interview recently it was Steve Porcaro and David Page from Toto. They did an interview at Sunset Recording Studios, and they were talking about Lukather, and they were saying how, Steve Porcaro was saying often they'd write a song and record a song, and he said maybe 3 months into a tour, he'd finally kind of go, actually, this is the part I should have played for this song. I've got my head around it now. Like he'd get to that point 3 months down the line where he felt comfortable that what he was playing was the right thing for the song. And he said Lukather got the first take every time. Right. Everything you can think of that Lukather's played that is a centerpiece of a song, like his rhythm part on I Keep Forgetting by Michael McDonald, or Human Nature, Michael Jackson. Every one of those things were first take parts that he came up with on the spot. That's what makes a great guitarist, I think, is the ability to get to that what the song needs immediately, in the moment. That's my thoughts anyway. So thanks, Damo, for those brilliant questions. We'll hope you're satisfied with those answers.
We'll see you at Thursday Jam soon, for sure.
Eventually. Right, should we move on to the next one?
Yes, buddy.
Brilliant. So this one came directly from my old mate, who I've known for 20 years now. He played guitar at my wedding. Mr. Connor McDonald. Connor.
He's a legend.
Absolute
a legend and a gentleman.
He's been on tour this year with Scouting for Girls. Can you believe it? Filling in for their usual session guitarist. So if you see Scouting for Girls at a festival this year, I can only apologise. But never mind. Just kidding, Connor. I know he's enjoying himself while he's out there. But he actually asks a brilliant question. I'd even say slightly provocative.
That's great. I love this.
Yeah. So he says, 20 years ago, most of us were content with just a tuner and a lead. Do you think we've been misled by online retailers and artists with vested interests into chasing a sound or solving a problem that never really existed? Boom.
Discuss. Boom. That's a whole episode, isn't it? That's a whole episode. I love the phrasing. I love the phrasing in it, which is like, been misled by online retailers. In part, you could unravel this so much, couldn't you? Like, it's the commercialization of this like industry, right? The ever increasing commercialization of this industry, but for people that also are bought into this notion of chasing tone and trying to emulate their idols.
Yeah.
Like, there are probably, within every guitarist, if they just sat down and spent as much time like just getting a nice guitar and a nice amp and just tuning it up properly and plugging it in with a lead, and if they just spent as much time like practicing and being sensitive to the music and developing their musicality, you'd realize you need less. You need less of everything else, right? You need less of all the boxes and the gadgets and the stuff that they tell you need to get better. So, but you know what? For a lot of people, it's kind of fun, and they like it, and there's the kind of the gadget side of it, and the evolving technology side of it, and the learning more about your equipment kind of thing, and that kind of then feeds the constant notion. But marketeers will always, and PR agents will always come up with like new ways to sell stuff that is effectively like promising to do stuff that maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, right? And we all love to buy into that. But I don't know if we've been deliberately misled, but I definitely think we all like to buy into that kind of notion about getting better through gear rather than through practice.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. No, and I think if I know Connor, then I think he believes that this is the case. I think that's partly why he's asking the question, and I think also thinking about Connor's experience as a guitarist and a professional guitarist, and knowing what I think he likes in a guitar sound, you know. Connor's an excellent guitarist. He was James Morrison's guitarist for about the last 6 years, and this is somebody who would take a Strat and plug through a simple pedal board into like a Cornell Dennis Cornell made amp, like a Plexi or like a Fender Deluxe style amp. Very core, very high quality tone. And it just sounds utterly fantastic when played. And I think he's also had experiences on gigs where he's been forced to use certain rigs.
Really?
Whether that's been like a Kemper or something like that, because that's what the band want. The band are in control of the sound. He was working for. They want to make sure that the sound guys get things in a certain way. So he's had these varying experiences of how to get his sound. And I think like many of us, probably always the most satisfied when he's just plugged into a really good quality amp that just sounds amazing. And I completely agree. I think I know I'm a very much a proponent of using modeling, but that's because of the situation I'm in when it comes to the kind of sounds I need to get and the access I need to have to things and how I need my sound to be presented. But I will always prefer the sound of an amazing amp plugged straight in. And I'm reminded of reading a story about, I think it was, what was the song that Bon Jovi did with Jeff Beck? Was it Blaze of Glory?
Yeah, right? From the Young Guns soundtrack, right?
That's it, yeah. You're kind of saying it as if you didn't, it wasn't, I think it was this, but I know you'd know it. It's deep down in your body.
I was having a conversation with Matt, the drummer from our band, incredible drummer, really into his guitar playing as well, good guitarist, and he's a huge Bon Jovi fan. So he and I were just discussing that song a couple of gigs ago. So yeah, it was right there.
Amazing. So I think the story, sorry, I got distracted then. Yeah, the story, I think it was John Bon Jovi was talking about how Jeff Beck came in to do the session for that song, and there was a really kind of crappy old Marshall in the room, not like a fairly recent one, or it just wasn't the thing that he wanted Jeff Beck to play through. And I think Jeff Beck used one of the Strats that was in the studio. He didn't turn up with anything. And John Bon Jovi, I think, felt quite apologetic about the fact that he probably hadn't kind of got everything ready for Jeff, and he thought he was probably going to go away and get all his stuff. And Jeff said, "No, it's okay. I'll just grab whatever it is." And he said he just sounded like Jeff Beck through whatever there was. Jeff didn't see the gear as some kind of problem. It was all in his fingers. As long as he had something to put his fingers on, that was all that mattered. He was just astounded at how somebody could still sound like themselves through whatever it was. That's the answer for me. I think you're right. We get caught up in thinking, our problems or our dissatisfactions can be solved by buying or upgrading something. And I think not enough of us work on really our own hands and, the transferal of what we want in our minds and our fingers onto the instrument. That's my answer for that. I think you're absolutely right, Connor. I think we do get misled, but they do have to sell us something. I mean, they can't exist without making a bit of money, I guess, can they?
So the only word that I think is interesting in that, the whole question's interesting. All the words are interesting. The only word that I think is quite to be played around with is the word misled, right? Because it implies that we're not willing participants in it. And I think that's where there's this bit where people need to feel stronger and be justified to say, tell me, really, is this going to make a difference to my playing and give me that tone that I want and be comfortable? How many guitar magazines, this is the thing that annoys me about guitar magazines now. Everything gets a Guitarist Choice Award. Nothing is ever critically appraised. Pick up a guitar magazine, right, and go through all the reviews. Not once do they kind of go, yeah, this thing's a piece of rubbish. Don't buy this. It's awful. Yeah. It promises to do this and it really doesn't. You read every review and everything's oh yeah, this is brilliant. This is amazing. 4 out of 5, 5 out of 5. Nothing gets a 1 or a 2 out of 5.
Yeah.
So people can't make an informed choice, right? So then you're just kind of blind leading the blind. But I think we like to be led in that way. So I don't think it's being misled. I just think we're looking for good advice. And Connor, your advice is probably the best. Get a good amp, plug it in, tune it up, make sure your guitar's set up nicely, and then just go for it.
Absolutely. All right, mate. Right, next question. Another legend from the Guitar Smarts community, Mr. Big Ray Qureshi of Bigfoot Guitars, right?
Yeah.
An excellent
great guitar builder. Great musician.
Great luthier, fantastic bassist, guitarist. Right, so his questions. I think this is directed at me.
This is. I'm going to ask it to you then. Do you have any regrets about going digital? Big Ray says he's recently got the Headrush Core and about to do his first bass gig with it. First guitar gig with it next weekend. Do you have any regrets about going digital?
Do I have any regrets about going digital? No, I don't have any regrets about going digital, but there's a big but, Ray, which is that I do still feel like I have a kind of there's something. I still think there's something missing, which is the option to not go digital. I do want over the next year or two to put together an alternative rig where I've got maybe something like a Fender Blues Junior and a simple little nano board of a drive and a boost pedal, maybe a delay and a tuner or something. I do feel like I'm missing that. There are times where where I record this, in the back bedroom of our house, where I keep the guitars and it's like the little music room. There are times where I just want to pick up my guitar and plug it in and play through a speaker. And I've been thinking about getting something like a little Spark amp or like a Yamaha THR. I don't have anything like that. If I want to play, I only have the digital option. So I do regret going digital in that sense, in that I feel like I've really improved my sound at the kind of gigs I do. I don't really have the option at home for doing something different. And I miss that. So that's my answer, Ray. I recommend going digital as a means to an end and for getting great sounds when you need them for gigs and for recording and for silent practice and things like that. But if anybody else is thinking of doing that, don't do it instead of having a normal guitar amp and rig. Keep your valve amp and keep your pedals as well for those days when you just want to plug into something and go. Because I do miss that.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think that's a nice balanced answer. Ray also says, am I tempted? And my answer is also no. No, I mean, and it's not because I don't like change or I don't like technology or gadgets or anything. I many years ago when I first started playing with you, Matt, in a band, I was kind of quote unquote digital in that regard. I was gigging a Line 6 Variax with all the different modelled guitars in it, and that was connected via like this kind of Ethernet cable direct to the XT pod floorboard, and everything was programmed in, and it ran straight into the power section of a solid state amp. And so that was what I was using. It was that modeled kind of sound, and I could press a button and it would turn everything like into a completely different rig. And it was great fun, and I loved it, and I screwed up for ages on programming it and chasing different things and combinations, and I loved all of that. And then it was you, Matt, actually, that got me into pedals and valve amps and kind of that whole rabbit hole. And you gave me great advice when I was building my first pedal board. And then just hearing that and feeling that, and then the whole kind of romanticization of like little pedals and like chopping them in and out of the board and like finding that sweet spot on a valve amp. I've just never looked back. Have I been tempted with the advent of what is arguably infinitely better modeling and tones from the likes of Helix and all of that? Not really, because I think if I was like somebody that was like traipsing around a lot, doing a lot of session work, then yes, I would definitely go down that route. But I'm a weekend warrior, right? I've got to do like 2 or 3 gigs a month. And for those moments, like I want to play guitar through a proper amp and through proper pedals, and the sound that I've got now through my rig, I'm just so content with, that I don't really want to mess with that. And I also don't want to have to go on what I remember being with my Line 6 rig, which was a constant journey of delving into that kind of digital programming aspect of it and constantly tweaking and changing and tweaking. And it just ended up getting in the way of my playing because I wasn't disciplined enough to just save the patch and move on. I was constantly fiddling with it. And I just thought, do you know what? It gets in the way of my OCD tendencies, and I just need to have a pedal board that's nice and simple and just make that work for me. And that's what I like.
Well, I've got to say, to be fair as well, you know, the original thing for me going digital was, like I said, the need to have a better experience at the kind of gigs I do, wedding gigs where it's silent stage, I'm on in-ears all the time. I never get to hear anything through a speaker. I've got to, you know, and that was, you know, and then I went down the rabbit hole of, I just love what I can do with the Helix. But, you know, I said earlier on, I'm planning on quitting doing wedding gigs after this year. I've only got 2 in the diary. There's a relatively big chance that if that Helix stays in its bag, not getting used for more than 6 months or so, I'm probably going to move it on and go back to a more analog rig. You know, maybe get something like a HX Stomp, so I've got something at home that's a smaller Helix style thing for getting those tones if I want to. But you know me, I'm like, I'm always selling and buying and changing over. It's like it's a cycle for me. But I feel like it's like renewing, you know. But anyway,
it is.
Yeah. So right, next question, David Bartlett. Hi, David. Absolute legend of the
world,
the scene down at your end of the world, right?
He is.
David asks us, "What is love?" I can't answer.
According to who? Hadaway.
Love is a warm guitar amp, a Helix digital modelling pedal, a tube screamer, a Strat Telecaster. All these things, David. You should know the answer to that.
Love is watching. Love is looking up from your pedal board at a gig, and looking across and right and seeing Dave next to you. Playing the bass, driving the groove, and just making everything better in the world with his amazing blue hair.
You're absolutely right.
And pure musicality. That guy. I watched them play an outdoor gig last month. Just the best live bass sound I've heard in such a long time, and it was all modelled. It was ridiculous. It was just incredible. He's an incredible guitarist, full stop. But I've only ever gigged with him while he's been on bass. Just ridiculous. Love. What is love? It's a complex series of emotions coupled with commitment, and then. Either that, or it's watching the first morning light bounce off that top carve on a flamed Les Paul. What?
A Tokai, you mean?
Whatever. Yeah.
Love is a Tokai.
Other brands are available. Love is a verb, according to John Mayer.
It's a verb. That's right. That just sounds a bit like he's being pedantic, wouldn't it? You know, like But anyway, thanks for that, Dave. We had to mention it because we said we'd answer everything.
We're answering all questions.
But it's very conceptual. The next question, I think, less conceptual. So another person who we interact with a lot on the Guitar Geek Hangout on Facebook and has been around for ages is Mr. Nick Gassman. Hi, Nick. And Nick has asked us a few things, actually. He said he thinks a lot of players today start as ever in the bedroom. Noise won't always be welcome. And the technology is here now with laptops and audio interfaces to be able to recreate a full studio experience with software and headphones. Absolutely agree with that. I use various things, but we'll get to that. He said he also thinks that a lot of players who learned with amps and headphones plugged into amps will say it's not the same, although blind tests suggest that many can't tell a difference or it's close. Nick mentions that he plays into an audio interface into his laptop through Amplitude, which is like a software modeling thing. And then he uses headphones or studio monitors to listen. He said he hasn't touched his Fender amp for a long time. This is the other side of life that doesn't seem to be discussed much. So I don't think Valve amps will die out or solid state or bedroom gear. And he says, well, number one, discuss. And number two, how much do you guys use laptop or home recording gear and software? So what he's talking about, obviously there's always been the argument between, Valve amps or modeling in a live situation. But what about in like a home practice or a home situation? Well, for me, it's all I have at the moment. I do have an amp, but it's in a, it stays in a protective case that I've got here. And when it's not always that easily accessible for me to just do practice. And if I'm practicing, I'm always practicing on headphones. So I usually plug into an interface into my computer, and I'll bring up Reaper, which is what I do the recording on, and then I'll just bring up the plugin. It's either the Helix native, so I'm just using Helix that's running on my computer, or I use Positive Grid Bias FX, which is the same thing that you get in like your Spark amps. But for me, it's on the headphones. And yeah, I agree, Nick. I don't think Valve amps will die out ever. I think, they just sound too good. But I think there's definitely more options for quiet practice that sounds good these days, as good as the real thing. If, that's what you want. If you want to sound like a produced, well-recorded guitar in your headphones all the time, that's the way to do it. But I will also say that if you're learning and you're practicing, nothing's more unflattering to your guitar playing than playing right into an amp and a speaker. Nothing will bring out to you the things you need to learn and practice the most than going through a guitar amp. That's what I've always thought. A guitar amp is quite unflattering. If you really want to develop your touch and your skill, then make sure you're dedicating some practice time to going straight into a Valve amp. The modeling stuff always sounds great, but you can hide all your idiosyncrasies and your little things that maybe need work. You can hide that under a stereo signal and ping pong delays and whole reverbs that you just go, oh, this sounds fantastic. I feel like, I'm in Genesis or something, but, meanwhile, you need to work on your hammer-ons and pull-offs. That's my thoughts on it, Nick, and it's a great question.
It's a really great question. I think for me, it comes down to what the situation calls for and how quickly you can access that, right? So for me, if I'm playing at home, it's either to learn a song for a gig, or it's just to kind of vent a bit of kind of playing kind of energy that I just want to get out there. So it's like, what can I plug into the quickest and do that? Or it's because it's a certain time of day where I can either plug into an amp and make some noise if everyone's out and about the house, or it's evening time and I need to stick some headphones in and be a bit quieter. So for me, it's just situational. But I don't have like a full studio setup here. I've got a Spark amp that I run into my laptop for occasional recording. And maybe I should do more of that, because most of my playing is just plugging into at home, particularly plugging into a Spark amp or plugging into my rig if I want to test out a new pedal or get some settings dialed in a little bit before I go out to a gig with my main rig. But what I did notice when I was doing this podcast with you is when on the occasions where we've recorded a few bits and pieces of playing to like put out there on social media, for me, it is a different like discipline to sit down and record and play and get takes right and kind of get over the fear of that red light recording thing. And so all of that kind of comes into it as well. So I'm on the other end of the spectrum. I probably need to spend a bit more time plugging into a laptop and like using some of that online studio stuff or laptop-based studio stuff just to kind of get that side of my playing a little bit better in terms of recording and playing in a mix like that, because I just like going out and playing with bands. So yeah, really good question.
Yeah, great question. Thank you, Nick. He did actually have another one, which I'll just quickly mention. So he said, how often do you guys see a show and think I could do better than that, or the mix isn't right, or the musical director needs to tighten up things? What makes for a good show? What drags it down for you? Does being a player or a singer make you more picky? Well, I would say yes. I definitely feel like I'm more picky. I feel like I listen to things that maybe some other people wouldn't listen to, But I would say, what makes for a good show is, for me, it's just, if I can see that the performance is being enjoyed by the people performing, that 100% makes everything better for me. Whether, I can get over things like the sound quality, I can get over things like the volume or stuff like that. If everything's being performed in a way that you just kind of start feeling what the band's feeling, or whatever that's being performed, that for me, that can kind of, that's the thing that solves everything. That's the glue between the audience and the performer, right? So that's how I feel about that. Great question, Nick.
I think it definitely, I agree with you. I'm certainly more picky, like when I go to gigs. I don't think I've ever, or very rarely have I looked at a band or somebody and gone, I could do better than that, because they're there, they're doing their thing, right? And it's not me that's playing up there on stage and doing that tonight, it's them. So,
exactly.
let them do their thing, right? And you may think, okay, they're not the greatest guitarist or bass player or drummer or whatever, but good on them. They're up there and someone's booked them and they're doing their thing. I've definitely consistently am picky about the mix. Always. I'm like, that mix isn't right, or I've had to move around venues to try and stand somewhere to find the right sound and all of that. That's the thing that probably annoys me the most, when the mix is just not good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it does make you more critical when you're listening to stuff, for sure, because you have an insight into how it's done, right? It's interesting. I was speaking to Damo a while back. I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, but I think he went through a phase where he couldn't really listen to music, just like for enjoyment for a while.
I'm not surprised.
Because it's his day job and he lives and breathes it so much, right? And then his brain can't switch off because it's always in analytical mode. Yeah. And it's always kind of like dissecting stuff, be it from a theoretical knowledge or a mixed perspective or whatever. And I kind of got it when I was saying that. I was like, wow, I'd never thought about it to the point where, you can't relax. I think that's past now, but yeah.
Well, I definitely
doing that for a living.
That's one of the main reasons why I've always listened to podcasts or spoken words or audiobooks and things after gigs. Because I want my ears to stop thinking about listening to the music and stuff like that. You know what I mean? That's part of the wind down process, to listen to somebody talking rather than music. I totally get that though. I definitely get that. Yeah. It can be a curse and a thing. Yeah, you know what I mean. Anyway, let's crack on. We've still got quite a lot to get through, right? And we're
all right. Let's do some speed ones.
Fantastic. Right. So from Ben Bardwell, why is it when I spend ages setting up what I think is a great tone on my Spark amp, then the next day when I plug in, it sounds like a bag of crap? Or maybe it's just me. It's not just you, Ben. That's every gig for me. You know what I mean? It's just, human ear is a strange thing, and I think there's a reason why a lot of producers and a lot of mix engineers and things like that will say they generally won't. If they're mixing and mastering a song and stuff like that, they generally won't do it in one day. They'll do part of it one day, part of it the next, because they know you can get ear fatigue. You might end up having kind of biasing what you're hearing towards one way and not realizing it until you listen to it after a night's sleep. I think what you're experiencing, Ben, is just something that's perfectly natural, which is human change from day to day and how you experience things, idiosyncrasies of life and human experience. I think that's all it is. Don't worry too much about it. Just play some music and enjoy yourself.
I agree. I think I read this question and I was like, one, I found it entirely relatable, particularly with the Spark amp, and and my brain was kind of like, I think the most logical and reasoned explanation is exactly what you said, which is just ear fatigue, and you kind of dial in a sound and dial in a sound and dial in a sound, and then you get used to it in your ears, and then you save it and you go, right, that's a great sound. But I found the same thing, Ben, and most particularly with my Spark amp. So when I read your question, I was kind of like, is there a problem with the Spark amp in the way that it saves presets? And I'm not sure if there is or not, but I've definitely encountered this where it feels like the EQ has changed in some way, even though I've saved it. So I would say make sure you update your firmware on your Spark amp. Have a go at playing with not only saving your tones to the tone cloud, but also have a go at saving them direct to the hardware on the Spark amp, the preset buttons that are on the amp, and see if that makes a difference. Because I agree with Matt. I think it's probably just like ear fatigue and situational on that moment. But there may be something in the way that the presets are being saved, or your patches are being saved by the Spark amp, where the EQ changes it slightly. I don't know, but I've noticed it on the Spark amp as well. So yeah. But I've since I bought it, I still have never updated the firmware on it. I think there's been about three patch updates since I bought it. So I'm kind of like, yeah, that was probably a bug fix somewhere along the line that I've just not done. So yeah, my bad.
Cool. Okay. Well, Ben, I hope you do. I hope you manage to come to terms with it. Just don't blame yourself, mate. Okay. Just it's not you. It's just the music, right? It's just the thing. It's life. Anyway, next questions. Right. We've got some kind of quick fire ones, I reckon, here from our good friend Jerry Letow, who, by the way, over on the Guitar Geek Hangout, he'd been posting recently about. He's currently, I think, refurbishing an old Fender Princeton, and he's really going into the proper detail about it. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how that turns out, and hopefully we get to hear it, because that is good. I love Princetons. Right? I'm a really big fan of the Fender Princeton sound. That little 15 watt, 12-inch speaker, really simple Fender sound. It's really awesome. So anyway, so first one from Jerry. Let's blast through these. Thanks, Jerry, for your questions. Yeah. Your favourite band needs a new guitar player. You get the call to try out, but when you show up, you're told you have to choose either a crappy sounding playing guitar and a good sounding amp, or a good sounding guitar and a lousy sounding amp. Which do you choose and why? Well, for me, it will always be the good sounding amp, because I just think a really great playing and sounding guitar will just get ruined and lost within the sound of a crappy amp. But even a crappy guitar will sound above what it can deliver through a decent sounding amp. I'd always go for the amp.
I think you are right, Matt. But for me, in this situation, I'd go guitar. I think I would. I would go guitar.
I gotta say,
a big, like, I think if I could, because the situation is like you're there auditioning or whatever in front of your favorite band, and you've got like a few moments to make an impact, right? I think maybe I've thought too much about this question, but I think they'll realize that it's a shitty amp, right? But not many people realize, and for me personally, like if I've got a guitar in my hand that's badly set up, like, and just isn't playing right, and that's how I imagined it. It's like I've been given this fucking turd of a guitar, right, to kind of play, and I'm like, there's no way I can connect with the music, and it just it frustrates me more than anything. Whereas I can get a half decent sound out of a rubbish amp if I can actually express myself on the guitar properly. Yes. I find it a real barrier.
That's a compelling argument, man. I like that answer a lot.
Well, and you can go, look, you can see how I can play. Like, you can see my chops. I mean, that amp's is a turd, right? So, like, I'd like to play to a decent amp next time. But
it's a potato. You're playing a potato.
But whereas you turn around and you go, oh yeah, I know it's a really amazing amp and this guitar and everything, but it's just not set up how I like it. And you just kind of go, yeah, all right.
Brilliant. Okay, good answer. So interesting, different things there. Anyway, next question from Jerry. Another quick fire one. Excluding Clapton or any band he's been in, and Guns N' Roses or any band those members have been in, list your top 3 songs from either the same or different bands that is at least 5 minutes long or longer. Right, Jerry, are you ready?
I love this question.
Free Bird, Hotel California, Champagne Supernova. Those are mine.
Champagne Supernova. I never expected you to mention it.
It's one of my favourite songs of all time. It's amazing. I love that song. Paul Weller plays the guitar solo in that. It's beautiful.
Wow.
I think it's a beautiful song.
I love the song. I didn't know that Paul Weller played on it.
Do you know that album,
I didn't know that was...
by the way?
It's on What's the Story, or is it on Definitely
It's on
Maybe?
What's the Story, actually. Not Definitely Maybe, but Definitely Maybe. It's 30 years old. That album, can you believe it? That was the sound of my teenage years.
Yeah,
exactly.
Geez.
Definitely Maybe.
I'm going to listen to that track after this.
Clapton's
I
From
love
the
that song.
Cradle is 30 years old next month.
I can believe that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's old blues music. Like, of course I can believe that.
Exactly. That's old blues music.
And From the Cradle are from the same point in time. That's bizarre.
That's weird.
Anyway, what are your 3 songs, dude?
Right, so my 3 songs. Riviera Paradise, Stevie Ray Vaughan. That's, dim the lights, pour yourself a glass of whiskey, put it on a CD player through a decent set of speakers and enjoy.
Oh, sorry, do you know, for a few seconds there, I thought you were listing songs. Pour yourself a glass of whiskey, dim the lights. Who did those ones?
I was creating context.
Oh, okay. Sorry, you were setting the scene, weren't you? Okay, Riviera Paradise.
I know, man. I know. Metallica, Master of Puppets, for when you're driving and just need some serious riff action.
You want to cause an accident, yeah.
And you want to cause an accident by speeding, yeah. And there's a track called Long After You're Gone by a now sadly deceased singer-songwriter called Chris Jones. It's just one of the nicest acoustic recorded guitar sounds I've ever heard. I love the lyrics of the song, and it's just a beautiful song. So go and check that one out if you're not familiar with it, and if you're into hi-fi and all of that, it's a great one for testing speaker setups or testing out your PA. Long After You're Gone, Chris Jones.
Notice, Jerry, how neither of us said Stairway to Heaven, but
no,
I imagine a lot of people would have been thinking that. Next one, right? So here we go again. Excluding Clapton or any band he's been in, or Guns N' Roses or any band the members have been in, what band do you wish you had the chance to see live that you've never had a chance to see live before? And I put for this one that after this week's terrible news, Aerosmith. Yeah. Because they've announced this week, haven't they, that they are no more because Steven Tyler, unfortunately, has not been able to recover from his vocal injury, and they do not want to continue without him. So that is that for Aerosmith. That's what they've said. I mean, I don't know whether it's a PR thing or whether it's genuine or not. I mean, they are getting on, bless them. They've been touring hard for their entire life. But yeah, that would have been cool. Good luck to them. I hope they do another tour. But yeah, if not, wow. A lifetime of rocking. For me, Queen with Freddie Mercury would have been the thing. For sure, man. Yeah, that is to see that live on my list. Yeah, that would have been it. So the next one from Jerry, we've got quite a gauntlet of questions from Jerry here. Thank you for asking them, Jerry. They're very good. Questions. If you could choose to go on the road as the guitar tech for any band, past or present, which one would you choose and why? Steve Lukather for me, for the obvious reasons. So I get to listen to Steve Lukather play every night. I could say Clapton, but actually, I think Clapton, I mean, I saw the Premier Guitar video of his rig rundown, and I think it would be a pretty boring job as it is, because it's like, tune up this Strat, tune up this acoustic, see you later, turn the amp on, plug it in, which is great, but still, maybe some days you'd be grateful for that. But yeah, Steve Lukather, to kind of, he's got just the level of complexity in a rig that I think I'd enjoy working with. Amazing guitars, amazing music, plenty of stuff to keep you on your toes. I'm sure it would be difficult, but I mean, to listen to him play music every night, that would be amazing. What about you, Kieran?
I'm going to say a name and you're going to go, what? But seriously, Joe Bonamassa.
Are you kidding?
I would. No, I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding.
Do you want... are you a sadomasochist? Is that what you're saying? Are you admitting indirectly to enjoying pain? Is that
to being punished? He's so particular, and I mean the arsenal of guitars that you'd get to kind of look after and get exposed to, I think would be really cool. I like the way he does his rig. Right, it's pretty simple. Right, it's a small pedal board. It's not complex. It's running a lot of amps and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think I'd just learn a lot, and I think it'd be interesting.
Yeah.
And
I know what you'd learn. The first thing you'd learn is how much you hate changing 16,000 sets of strings a day. and carrying 14 Dumble amps. I think that's what I think you'd learn pretty quickly what regret feels like, Kieran.
I haven't thought this through, have I?
You haven't thought this through.
The weight of those amps alone would break me. I'm not. Yeah. So you've gone Steve Lukather there, so you can just take a Kemper round in a flight case and a couple of Lukes, right? That's it. Done.
He
Job
does
done.
play through a couple of Bogner stacks and has a fairly decent pedal board, but he's playing 2 or 3 different guitars. You're not having to hand someone a priceless artifact every other song. I don't
That's
think
quite prescient, isn't it?
Kieran.
Yeah, I don't consider myself a clumsy man, but I'd be overthinking every time I pick one of those up. And that thing where you kind of like, don't drop it, and because you've kind of thought that too much, you end up dropping it. Yeah, it'd be a pretty short-lived career. Yeah,
right. Right, yeah, okay. Let's say Joe Bonamassa, but I don't think you're right. I think you'd regret that, but... Okay. Anyway, so the next one from Jerry. There's a couple more. Come on, let's get through them. Jerry, they're fantastic questions. You finally get that Murphy Lab LP you've always wanted. I think this is a question directed at you, Kieran.
How is it?
Yeah, I think so. But I've answered it. You decide to take your significant other out to dinner to celebrate. Before leaving, you glance back to admire the Les Paul proudly displayed on your guitar stand. However, when you come home, find that your new puppy, which your significant other adores, has decided to use that Les Paul as a chew toy. How do you handle it? Does anybody ever see the dog again? That's such a good question. Well, the rational person in me, Jerry, would say I would handle it by just paying the claim excess on my home contents accidental damage insurance, and then hopefully that would solve that problem. But yes, the dog would certainly not be looked at with great fondness from me for a little while. Yeah. What about you, Kieran?
I don't see what the issue is, right? Because I think that's one of the techniques that Murphy uses, isn't it, in the relicking process? I think it's a combination of bicycle chains, dragging it through some gravel, like a bit of razor blade relic cracking, and then just for the really special ones, he gets his dog to come in and urinate in the pickups just to give them that old kind of,
oh dear,
stank. I think that's where the original term stank came from in terms of like musical
I think
prowess.
I did see one of the models actually was a 59 Golden Retriever tarnished Les Paul heavy relic. Is that right?
That's right. I think that's right.
Drooled on 12th fret,
Labradoodle burst. I think that's what they used to use in those aniline dyes. I think back in the day, I think it was extract of dog urine that kind of really gave that vibrant tomato soup colour to some of the. No, I have no idea.
Okay,
coming to you. Coming to you next
last
year.
one from Jerry. If you didn't play guitar or bass, what instrument would you play and why? Drums for me, Jerry. I find
really?
I definitely tend to find myself drumming along to music more than I do actually end up. I've been listening to the Beatles a lot this last week too. I always enjoy listening to them, and I always end up finding myself just listening to Ringo's drumming so much and enjoying it, on the song The End, where he does that drum solo, and so much of his stuff he did on the first album, Please Please Me. Amazing. He's an amazing rock and roll drummer, and I love listening to drummers play, and I think I still would like to learn the drums eventually. Once I've got a bit more room and a bit more time, maybe a bit of a, something to do later in life. That's probably what I do. But what about you, mate?
Nice. Well, one is on my bucket list of things to do in later life. I don't know if I'll ever get to it, and that's piano. I really want to learn piano. It's just, I don't know. I think it's a beautiful sounding instrument. I've got like romantic ideals of like sitting down at a baby grand and just kind of playing the night away. I'm very envious of people that can play piano.
Me too, actually. And I do love the piano. I would love to play it too, but I feel like it's out of reach, you know. But anyway, Matt, just before we jump on to the next question, can you believe it? While we've been on this call, I've had a couple more questions come in. So I'm just gonna read them out for you now. So one is from Matt Merchant, another legend and veteran of the Guitar Geek Hangout. Hi, Matt. He said, I started guitar 30 years ago, age 7. taught by my dad, didn't have lessons till secondary school. And my eldest has just turned 7 and got his first guitar and lessons booked in school for September. So the question is now, how much has learning guitar changed over the years with YouTube and apps, etc.? And how would you approach encouraging teaching a child to play guitar now? My number one thought on this immediately is just avoid YouTube. I think there's too much stuff out there. Because that's part of the reason why I'm struggling to learn new things now, is I feel like I'm constantly looking for the right thing to watch and listen instead of just getting stuck in. So I think the best thing to do is to do what you've already done and just get lessons with a good teacher booked in and let that person guide you until you can get to a point where you can start, teaching yourself a little bit more. But even then, I would say, avoid the YouTube stuff unless you really know what it is you're trying to focus on. But that's my thoughts on that.
That's a great question. And I'm going through this, right? Because I've got a 10-year-old now who's been learning for a few years, and he's really getting to a cool level now where he can go and use YouTube and he can go and read tab and teach himself stuff. And he went and learned Crazy Train the other day just off his own back. And I was like, dude, where did you learn that? And he was just like, I just found it on YouTube and just taught himself within I don't know, 20 minutes. He was just banging out the riff. And I'm like, dude, that's amazing. That's absolutely killer. But it started the long and hard way, which was he sat down and his fingers hurt and he went to a guitar teacher. Well, he had Matthew Lake, friend of the show, Matthew Lake. And now he's lucky to have Rob Skinner, again, friend of the show, who's teaching him. And these guys are just incredible guitarists, but understand how to relate to somebody that is learning and finding the frustrations of learning guitar and just making it fun and teaching them songs they want to know and explaining it in a way that they can kind of get. So I think absolutely, I think it has changed massively since when we were learning, and I think it can be intimidating now because you can see on YouTube all these other virtuoso guitarists and all of that, and it can make you feel it makes me feel like some days I can never get better because these kids are just shredding it on YouTube. It's more intimidating and it's taken away from first principles, which is training your ear. We spoke about that a lot, right? How we learned, which was on a CD player or a tape player, and learning and listening and trying to replicate that way. So I think there's definite pros and cons, but I think it's wonderful that kids have got access to so much stuff now, and I can see the benefits of the YouTube thing. But I would say having a Jedi Knight to guide you through the process, in a good guitar teacher, is definitely the way.
You need an Obi-Wan. You do need an Obi-Wan, don't you?
Get an Obi-Wan, yeah.
Because here's the thing, when you're learning online, or if you're trying to find your own material to learn, that you do have so much access to stuff, but you're missing that wisdom from someone. You are missing the Obi-Wan element, aren't you, of the person who, not just to tell you to do something, but to not do something as well. Yeah. You need that. You need that guidance from someone. So yeah, great question, Matt. Thanks for that. And then we'll move on to the last question, which came from Instagram. John McHugh asked, and again, this is one for you to answer, Mate. What Tokai Strat? What Tokai Strat? And it's just for you, the Tokai representative and sponsor of the show, Kieran. What Tokai Strat would Kieran recommend that would be equivalent to an American standard? Love the show. Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Oh, cheers, John. Thank you, mate. Love the question. Right, simple. If you're looking for a Tokai Strat and you're looking at what are called the Gold Star strats, or I think they're modeled prefixes AST. Have a look on the website. I mean, basically, they are Japanese-made Strat equivalents, and they're really nice. I've played a few of them. They're really good. I mean, I think where Tokai excels is the kind of set neck, single cut type designs that they do, the Love Rocks and things like that. I think they just do those brilliantly. I do like some of their Strats. So have a look at the Gold Star Strat range. They're quite affordable. You can get them anywhere from $500 all the way up to $1,500 for the more kind of higher spec models, and that kind of puts you, particularly the kind of $1,000 model, £1,000 model, puts you straight up against an American standard in terms of quality and fit and finish. So that's the Tokai Gold Star. If you want a slightly left field answer, what Tokai Strat would I recommend? That's equivalent to an American standard. Any Fender Japanese Strat made between 1997 and 2005, because the rumor mill is, and I think it's fairly established and fairly justified, is that actually those Fender Japanese Strats that were being made during that period were actually being made by Tokai under license from Fender.
Oh, wow.
So, and that's why those Japanese Strats of that era had such a high regard.
Oh.
They were amazingly made, and they were beating the American standards in terms of quality and price point, right? Because it had the meticulous Japanese finish and like specifications, but at a much reduced price. And that's why, you know, people were, particularly in kind of Western Europe, were craving these Japanese Strats because we didn't have access to them. But the ones that you found, you were like, they're amazing. So yeah, I think I'm pretty certain that under license, Fender Japanese Strats made over that kind of decade or so period, late 90s through to early noughties, were in fact made out of Tokai factory.
Wow.
So get yourself one of those.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And that's a really great point. I guess I've got another actually slight left field answer to that as well, mate, which is, and you'll agree to this because you've done this and I've done this as well, which is if you're thinking if you want a US Strat high quality guitar, but you don't want to spend the money that you have to part with to get one of those, but you want something that quality. If you're used to setting up your own guitars and you're confident, I would recommend having a go at building your own. Go out and buy the parts if you go out and buy the parts that are the same quality as you get from the US Strats, but you're willing to buy everything individually and spend some time putting it together and setting it up, and even then just sending it to a luthier or a guitar maintainer and getting somebody to set it up for you, you're going to save a lot of money and you're going to get something that's as good as one of those American standard Strats. It's one of the most satisfying things I've done over the last year is build a Strat. Advice. You know, they're designed to be assembled. They were designed to be assembled on an assembly line by people who weren't guitarists. You know,
true, and you'll get something that, you know, has got your blood, sweat, and tears in it, and feels like, you know, you've brought it to life.
It's only yours.
It's only yours, one of one. That's really great advice. The other last one to mention as well, which is, I think, Fender custom shop quality for American standard money is a guitar that we've spoken about, and this is probably the best Strat that I've played to date in my time on this earth, and that's a Strat kind of style S-style guitar from a company called Maybach.
Yeah, I remember that was your Guitar Safari, right?
Yeah,
in London,
yeah, the Guitar Safari that I did, and I tried one of these, and it's the Maybach Stradivari S61, and they retail for about the same money, about $1,500 to $1,600, maybe up to $1,800 pounds, dollars-ish, and that's kind of American standard money, but that guitar is every bit as good, and if not better, than some of the custom shop Strats that I've played. Phenomenal guitar, phenomenal Strat.
Well, there you go. There you have it, people. What a great question to end on. Fantastic question. And mate, I'm so pleased with the questions we've had. That's it. 100 episodes. Done. Dusted. Here's to the next 100.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for the questions, man. That's amazing. I enjoyed that so much.
I really enjoy that. We should do that more often, actually. Get some listener questions in. So, I don't know what else to say, really. Zoom is about to kick us off in the next 2 minutes. Kieran, what would you want to say? Thank you to everyone who's listened, I guess.
Thank you to everyone that's listened, and thank you, mate. Yeah. Thank you for making these last couple of years so much fun, and it's just an absolute delight to chat to you about this stuff.
You
we
too,
laugh,
buddy.
We cry, we inspire each other, so I'm forever grateful for the work that you do on this podcast, mate.
No worries, buddy.
I love it.
And long may it continue, yeah?
Cheers, pal.
Here's to the next 100.
Yay!
I'll see you on the next one, my old man.
See you soon, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for listening. If you like what you hear, then why not give the rest of our shows a good listen too? And if you love our podcast and are a regular listener who wants to support the show even more, then consider buying us a coffee over on our Buy Me a Coffee page. Anyway, see you again next time on the Guitar Smarts podcast.